Joining me now are two eminent guests. Let me welcome retired Lieutenant General Satish Dua, former GOC, 15 Corps Kashmir. Also joining me is Richard Rossoff, Senior Chair and Advisor, Center for Strategic and International Studies. And Richard is joining us from Washington, D.C. Warm welcome to both of you.
Our military camp was attacked. I was the corps commander then. It was a military camp. And then, of course, we launched surgical strikes for the first time. We hit terrorists there across the border. When Pulwama was launched, attack was launched, it was CRPF Jawans, and we launched a precision airstrike at Balakot. But this time round, innocent tourists have been targeted. It is very clear that Pakistan is concerned with its diminishing relevance in the state of Kashmir, especially in the last 5 years, as Kashmir progresses towards development, calm and quiet, no violence, and hordes of tourists coming there, which are the source of livelihood. So they have actually taken a leaf out of Hamas's book. When Hamas attacked Israel on the music fest, they were innocent youngsters enjoying music festival at Nova and the kibbutzim all around. So they did it only to, they were feeling their Hamas issues being marginalized globally. They wanted to get back the global spotlight on it, and they did it. This is exactly what Pakistan has done. They have propped up this thing. We heard their Pakistan Army chief talk about this. They're talking about Hindu, Muslim, and we are very different, and how Muslims are, so that kind of rant, I won't like to talk about that. And there, at any covert operation, as a military man, I can tell you, any covert operation is cleared at highest levels because the repercussions could be dangerous. The response could be dangerous. And so the point that I'm trying to make here is that this attack was intentionally done. Hindus were segregated, Hindu males were killed, and the women were let off and said, go tell this to Modi. Not to the army, not to the police, go tell Modi. So, and the timing of the attack. The timing of the attack was when the US Vice President was in our country. Prime Minister Modi was in Saudi Arabia, and they wanted to grab the global spotlight. So that's why that makes this attack all the more heinous and dastardly.
Right. General Dua, I'll come back to you for more. Let me go across to Mr. Richard Rosso. Mr. Rosso, can you give us a perspective, a sense of how the international community is processing what happened in Pahalgam?
Yeah, I'll join my government, our people in the United States and leaders from around the world expressing our support and sympathy for India for what took place. I am far away in Washington, D.C., but from WhatsApp group with friends and what I've heard so far, this hits differently, as the general pointed out. This is not like attacks on military installations. This is striking the people a little bit differently, and I suspect that we know that there's a certain playbook you do after attacks happen. For those of us who've been working on this for many years, but then you reach the end of the playbook, and we don't know what exactly is going to be next. It's been a few years since India faced attack of this kind of significance, but fortunately, it has been all too common in India, as well as in the United States, Israel, and a lot of India's partner countries. So sympathy, support, also watching with bated breath to see what sort of things transpire and what happens next. So all eyes are certainly on the South Asia region this week.
Right. General Dua, talking about the responses that India has come up with it, there's a great focus on India's suspension of the Indus Water Treaty. If you could help us understand the measures taken so far.
So the measures, as always, are diplomatic, economic, military, not necessarily in that order. So the strongest measure that has been, a slew of diplomatic measures were announced last night. And the strongest measure was the suspension of the Indus Water Treaty. So let me recall for the viewers that Indus Water Treaty has withstood 4 wars and countless such high-profile terror attacks. Because that is something that India did not ever want to use water as a leverage, being an upper riparian state. But this time, I think they have descended to a new low, and India has decided enough is enough. And that is why that is the strongest measure, because that is going to hurt the heartland, the Punjab, the farmers of Punjab. And Punjab, in Pakistan side, Punjab is the heartland. Not only is it the heartland, it is also it is the military. The army comprises largely of Punjabis. The government consists largely of Punjabis. So Punjabis call the shots there, and it is going to hurt them maximum. It is also going to be in an economic turmoil as Pakistan already is. This is going to add to their troubles. And one of their own think tanks statement or study reveals that if this sort of a thing happens, Punjab will turn into a desert. So I think the Indus water abrogation, you see, when we say that they have suspended the treaty, nothing, it does not stop sending, the water doesn't stop flowing tomorrow.
Right.
But they are putting them on notice. And from now onwards, all efforts will be made. And there are a lot of slew of measures that will already trouble them, because today now India is not duty bound to share meteorological and hydrographic data with them. When we open the gates and when we let the water in, and when we slow it down, we don't have to inform them in advance. We don't have to they allow their people to come and inspect the facilities as was being done hitherto. So this is going to be the strongest measure. There are other measures like sending out expelling the High Commission, the military advisors, toning down the diplomatic staff, ending the visas, telling all nationals to go back, and so on and so forth. So I think this, I will talk about the military response that will come later.
Right.
I will stop for now.
Right. I'll come to that. Mr. Rosso, Prime Minister Modi was in the Indian state of Bihar today, and he was delivering an address in Hindi. Then he wanted to address the international community. He switched to English and he spoke about avenging the terror attack at any cost. How do you read that message?
It's hard to read. Obviously, no leader is going to communicate directly what the plans are, but as I kind of indicated before, we know the playbook, the steps that India would typically take and Pakistan would take when you see an escalation of this crisis. But the last couple of times you had significant attacks, India initiated, first the surgical strikes, then you had airstrikes. So we know that India has more tools on the table they're willing to employ. And, frankly, the United States and other countries have been willing to accept that, kind of realizing India must take out terror camps, has the right and ability to do so. And hopefully that would, provide a lesson to Pakistan where they'd be less interested in, going to the table and supporting an attack in the future. That hasn't happened yet. So, we do expect there will be other more kinetic steps than the diplomatic steps that you've seen so far. But the Prime Minister isn't going to release that. I will say, around town this week, since we have the World Bank IMF meetings and there's a large Indian delegation, of course, the finance minister went back to India after the attacks. But, the business community, I think, so far is looking at this saying, we see tough talk, but they believe India also has a stake in stability. There's a lot of crises around the world, and India has found ways to take advantage, trying to attract investment. So hopefully it doesn't escalate beyond a point, because on the flip side of things, in terms of India's own domestic economy and job creation, India has a pretty unique moment right now to win a lot of global supply chain variation, and conflict certainly doesn't help that. So I suspect a kinetic response, but hopefully it'll be limited in some extent, and the other good things that are happening with India can be sustained.
And also, Mr. Rosso, as cross-border linkages to the attack are investigated and revealed, do you see this leading to Pakistan getting further isolated for being accused of harboring terrorism, using terrorism as a state policy?
Yeah, it's hard to isolate Pakistan further. We don't have a lot of global development assistance going to Pakistan anymore. If anything, India's other great neighbor to the east may look at this as an opportunity to perhaps engage Pakistan more fully. Anything that China sees that takes India eye off the ball for the eastern border, for the maritime domain, even India's great work in building a deeper level of strategic engagement with the United States and with the Quad. These are things that China doesn't want. So if an attack like this takes India's eye off and they focus instead on militarizing the border and things like that, probably inherently good for China. So I don't think most of the world really can take much more additional steps to isolate Pakistan. That's been done and dusted, and it's fairly well entrenched. But maybe other states that are a little bit less choosy about who they partner with, like China, may choose to step up cooperation with Pakistan in a moment like this.
Right. General Dua, you shared how you played a key role in the 2016 surgical strikes. What insights can you share with us about the complexity of the terror ecosystem across the border, and what options does India have that it could exercise this time?
Well, Shubhendu, first about the terror ecosystem across the border. Now, across the line of control, the ISI, the intelligence wing of the Pakistan Army, actually creates a terror ecosystem. They have terrorist training camps. They are not very far from the LOC. And then there are launch pads from where infiltrators are launched across the LOC, inside Indian territory. On that, they are much closer to the line of control. And at any one time, I mean, all these terrorist training camps have adequate terrorists. They just wait for the right opportune moment and try to push them across. ISI masterminds the planning of major operations. ISI masterminds the allocation of funds. And this is not one terror group. The two major ones are Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba, LET. But what they've done of late, and of course there is Hizbul Mujahideen, which has more indigenous content. But of late, to escape the attention of the global community, more so the Western countries, they have actually now have different names. Smaller organizations called the Resistance Front has come up. This attack was by the Resistance Front. The Resistance Front is actually a franchisee of the LET. And so similarly, there are other organizations which are fronts for other terrorist organizations. So the point I'm trying to make that this whole ecosystem is being sort of supported, controlled, planned. Everything is being done by the ISI. As to what our responses can be. Now, when we had the terror camp at the army camp at Puri was targeted. We lost 18 soldiers. We launched for the first time a cross-border strike in multiple locations, which is now called the surgical strikes, when I was a corps commander. The next time, the CRPF Jawans were targeted, 40 of them, and we launched precision airstrikes deep inside the Pakistan territory. But then again, only terrorist camp was targeted. Now, this time round, it has assumed a much bigger dimension. Innocent tourists have been killed. They've tried to create a Hindu-Muslim divide by picking on Hindu tourists, and that has enraged the country. That has enraged. And that has enraged the Prime Minister or the leadership to say this is why he's announced that. And like you rightly brought out, he suddenly switched to English because he wants to say that to the world directly.
Right.
Now we can expect there will be a response. Military response will follow. It has been stated by the Prime Minister. It has been stated by the Defense Minister. It will follow. What shape it will take, we cannot second guess. Will it be the same kind of a model it will follow like the earlier two? I don't think so. It will be a very different kind of a model because there will be different things. And also the fact is this time, the difference is that they said we will also target their backers. Now, who are their backers? Their backers are the ISI, the Pakistan Army. So it will be a different level, but we will obviously have to find space below the nuclear threshold and that it doesn't escalate. Like my other co-panelist Ross just brought out that India is also poised at other things. So it will have to be a very, since India is poised for growth, we don't want to be set back. It will have to be a very judiciously calculated move. And I'm sure Our leadership is working at it, and there's no point in trying to sort of second guess them as to what they will do.
Okay, Mr. Rosso, the shocking attack happened while the US Vice President was visiting India. The Trump administration has expressed solidarity with India. How do you see the convergence and cooperation between the two sides, India and the United States, as far as the fight against terrorism is concerned?
Yeah, mostly it is an issue of convergence. A lot of the same groups globally threaten both of our interests. There are occasionally divergences, right? Some of the groups from Pakistan may target India specifically and aren't yet viewed as a significant threat to the U.S. homeland per se. But we do have common threats with a lot of groups, ISIS and Al Qaeda, that have targeted both countries. We have some differences. I think we take Bangladesh for instance, where the United States has typically been promoting and supporting democratic elections, whereas India has concerns that one of the two major parties has linkages to terror organizations and certainly is more lenient toward terrorism. So it's not like perfect congruence, but for the most part, we both share this concern. Cooperation, there you've got a list of things that you and I can see and that we know that's happening. We see the announcement of exercises on how to neutralize terrorist organizations, sharing of lists of groups that we know that are on danger lists and watch lists for both countries. But presumably there's a whole bunch more that we don't know. Some work that may be done on sharing geospatial, sharing intelligence on the movement of groups. So presumably there's a lot more action in the don't know side of the camp than the things that we do know. Because again, we both believe that these are, next to the rise of China and some other elements, it's one of the biggest shared threats that we have. And both attempts to neutralize and save each other's personnel, territory, very important work there that the two leaders have done across successive administrations on both sides.
Right. And finally, General Dua, given that you've also served in Kashmir, a humanitarian aspect of what has happened in view of the attacks and the aftermath, what are the implications of for people of Jammu and Kashmir in particular?
Allow me to say that we have to, I just talk about people of Jammu and Kashmir, but let me just talk about people of India.
Yes.
Because as the bodies have started going back yesterday and today, we see outpouring of grief at every place. We see in the media that we are only talking about the fact that the Hindus have been isolated, Hindus have been separated, and Hindus have been killed. And we must, but no one is talking about how the Kashmiri Muslims who actually held them. There is a visual of a Kashmiri Muslim, and I specifically say Kashmiri Muslim because they have helped some of the survivors to come out. One of them, a Poniwala, tried to snatch the gun of a terrorist, a rifle of the terrorist, and he shot him. And he died. He gave up his life. So all I'm trying to say is, in the human dimension, as the bodies go back home, we must take care. The country as a whole, the nation as a whole must take care that we do not fall prey to this communal religious divide. Because if we do, then the terrorists have achieved their aim. Coming to the dimension in Kashmir, it is for the first time that we see an outpouring of grief in Kashmir, cutting across all the political lines and party lines and other groups. Everyone has unequivocally, for the first time in the history of this state, has condemned this terrorist act. Opposition parties, Hurriyat Conference has condemned it. Many Muslim groups have condemned it. Everyone across the board has condemned this. This is for the first time that it has happened. Normally, they would actually stay silent. So we must also take care. Now, what has happened over the last 5 years? Tourism, amongst other things, tourism grew to great heights. And last year, it actually cost 2 crores. Now, because it was growing industry and tourism was growing so fast, so many Kashmiris have actually invested, left their jobs and actually invested in hotels, have made homestays, have bought cars to use as taxis, have started making money out of tourism. Overnight, that has changed. Everyone has gone back. No one is coming back again. There will be no tourism worth the name this summer. So they are going to take the hit. The poor people will take the hit. And I think it is for the state government, it is for the Indian central government to think about it. Let us not have poor innocent people suffer. they will have to find some ways to do it. Otherwise, poverty might breed alienation. And then we were proud to say that the youth are not joining the terrorist ranks. Let us not have youth getting pushed to that. I think that's another dimension that we must not only sort of take care of, but we must also build on it. For the first time, if Kashmiri people are speaking against terrorism, it is happening. It's a rare first. So we must also build on it and continue that momentum.
Right. On that note, General Satish Dua, Mr. Richard Rosso, appreciate you joining us on the News Hour and sharing your perspective.
Thank you.